Hey everyone, it's CTO of the Theory Channel, and you know what the most boring sporting event is? The 1994 Triwizard Tournament. I mean, the wizarding world acts like this is their Olympics, but it must be pretty disappointing when you can only watch one out of the 3 tasks. And while Quidditch seems so much cooler and more exciting than a lot of Muggle sports, the Triwizard Tournament just doesn't seem like much of a crowd pleaser. Plus, even though the whole point of the tournament is for young wizards to go undergo incredibly dangerous tasks, none of the 4 champions, including a 14-year-old boy, are killed or even badly hurt, and 2 people manage to win. There are multiple mysterious characters involved in the tournament too, like Barty Crouch Jr., Sr., and even Lord Voldemort himself. So today, I'll discuss the truth behind the Triwizard Tournament. So my original plan was to make a more simple theory, just covering all the ways that the Triwizard Tournament makes no sense, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I got involved in a much deeper plot hole. Today I am going over a lot of things included in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, such as the Triwizard Tournament, Lord Voldemort, Barty Crouch Jr. and Sr., Betha Jorkins, Ludo Bagman, and Portkeys. So hopefully you're in this for the long haul, and I promise you it'll be worth it in the end. But I will start off with going over all the reasons why the Triwizard Tournament makes no sense. First off, in response to if Harry has to compete or not, Barty Crouch Sr. states that there's a magical contract bounding him to the tournament as soon as his name is drawn by the Goblet of Fire. Why would that be so? I mean, except for this scenario, every name that's been drawn from the goblet has willingly volunteered to compete in the tournament. Most students consider it an honor to be selected as champion and represent their schools, so why this rule? Is it really in place at all? But more on that a bit later, as right now we go to task number 1. The first task is probably the most dangerous, and definitely the only crowd-pleasing one. With champions battling dragons and flying through the air surrounded by a cheering crowd, the tournament was actually off to a great start. The only problem was that you don't get much of an advantage or disadvantage depending on where you place. For the first 2 tasks, the champions just accumulate points based on their standings, and the points only matter for the order they enter the maze in the third task. And it's literally minutes apart. I mean, there's clearly not a big advantage or disadvantage entering the maze first or last. You face just the same amount of danger, and it's still basically luck as to which roads you take. And this doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't you really get rewarded for winning one or both of the first 2 tasks? In the end, the only thing that matters is the maze. I mean, that's it. And the thing is that the tasks also seem to get progressively easier. The first task is extremely challenging, as you're facing a fire-breathing dragon. The second task seems a bit less exciting, and the only real danger is the merpeople. And finally, the third task, and although it is a pretty creepy maze, it actually wasn't that harrowing, especially in the movie. Victor Crumb was the main challenge, and he was bewitched by Barty Crouch, and somehow not 1, but 2 champions managed to get to the cup. And of course, let's not forget about that whole incredibly boring for the fans aspect. So what is the meaning for any of this? Why is this such a weird Triwizard Tournament? Even though we don't know the details of the previous tournaments, I think it's safe to assume that they were more dangerous and crowd-pleasing, as the Ministry eventually canceled the event because of too many deaths and injuries. So why was this year so strange? Well, as I'm sure you know, the tournament was partly corrupt, as Barty Crouch Jr., posing as Mad-Eye Moody, helped guide Harry through the tournament in multiple ways. Crouch's job was to successfully deliver Harry to Lord Voldemort by making sure he was the one to touch the Triwizard Cup in the middle of the maze, which would transport him to the Little Hangleton graveyard as a portkey. Crouch helps Harry out by giving him information on the coming tasks, preparing and training him for the coming tasks, and even bewitching Crumb to help ensure that Harry would win. But what if Crouch and others actually help Harry out in much bigger ways than we realize? And what if the oddity of the tournament can be explained by this? The 3 people we know that help create and regulate the tournament are Barty Crouch Sr., Ludo Bagman, and Betha Jorkins, and they all might have a connection to Voldemort. Barty Crouch Sr. is the most obvious case, as Voldemort put the Imperius Curse on him when he came to recruit Crouch Jr., and the curse wasn't broken until just hours before Crouch died. His death came around the time of the second task, meaning that he already put certain rules and regulations in play, while under Voldemort's Imperius Curse. Moving on to more corruptness, Betha Jorkins, a ministry worker in the Department of Magical Games and Sports, also has a large connection to Voldemort. When visiting the Crouch estate, Jorkins found out that Crouch Sr. was hiding his criminal son in the house, and Crouch had to wipe her memory because of that. Jorkins then goes on holiday to Albania. Wait, hold up, Albania? The place that just happens to be currently housing the Dark Lord? This can't be a coincidence. Out of the few memories that are left inside Jorkins' mind, one must have something to do with seeking out Voldemort. Maybe she even overheard Barty Crouch Jr. inside the estate. And also, the Harry Potter wiki states that although she recognized Peter Pettigrew, he was able to convince her to take a stroll with him into the woods. What? This makes no sense, as Jorkins is a ministry official and would hardly be willing to walk with Pettigrew, who, by the way, is hardly charming. So it makes the most sense that Jorkins actually willingly told Voldemort everything she knew about the Triwizard Tournament, which is in her area of profession. And the last person to study is Ludo Bagman, a character we actually never see in the movies, but apparently he's the second judge for the tournament. And again, we have reason to believe that he had a connection to Voldemort. Bagman had apparently never paid back a group of goblins he borrowed money from, and was cornered by them at the Quidditch World Cup. Still not having paid them off, Bagman appeared delighted when Harry's name was drawn out of the goblet, and bet that Harry would win the tournament to earn enough money for the goblins. This, of course, makes absolutely no sense, as Harry's 14 years old and inexperienced, as opposed to the other 3 champions. I mean, almost nobody expected Harry to win from the start, aside from Bagman. In the books, Bagman continuously tries to help Harry prepare for the tasks and awarded him with an extra 10 points at the end of the first task. So either he's obsessed with Harry Potter, or he's under the Imperious Curse, perhaps by Voldemort himself, but most likely from Barty Crouch Jr., working under Voldemort. This means that the 2 judges, Betha Jorkins and of course Barty Crouch Jr., all were helping out Voldemort in some way. And if they're helping out Voldemort, they're doing everything they can to get Harry to win. Which is why the Triwizard Tournament is so unfair, strange, and corrupt. Crouch Jr.'s tips and tricks were only the start for what was really going on throughout the 3 tasks. Voldemort's influence and Imperious curses sum up everything. Why Crouch Sr. and Bagman were so persuaded that Harry needed to be in the tournament. Why 2 of the tasks weren't even viewed by the spectators. Voldemort didn't want them to see the corruption that was going on. And of course in the 3rd task, why Harry and Cedric just disappeared. And maybe most of all, why winning the 1st or 2nd tests didn't really matter, as Voldemort didn't think Harry was actually gonna win them, so the only thing that did matter was reaching the cup first. So that's the truth behind the Triwizard Tournament, an event full of corruption, Lord Voldemort, and Imperious curses. But when looking back at all of this, I wondered something that many other Harry Potter fans have. Why did Voldemort need to use the tournament to get to Harry? I mean, there seem like so many easier ways for Crouch to bring Harry to the graveyard, like just setting up a random Portkey and using it. We know that Crouch is able to create a Portkey inside of Hogwarts because he does so with the cup. Or does he? The Harry Potter wiki explains that Hogwarts Portkey laws should be just like Hogwarts operation laws, meaning only the headmaster would be able to Portkey in or out of Hogwarts. And this makes sense, as Portkeys seem unnecessary for teachers and are obviously not allowed for students. But then how is Crouch able to make the Triwizard Cup a Portkey? Well, he didn't. You see, the cup was always intended to be a Portkey, because it was meant to bring the winner out of the maze and right in front of the stands. Because, I mean, otherwise it would be, congratulations, you won, now find your way out. Knowing that he couldn't create a Portkey himself, Crouch let Dumbledore create it, with its intended point being right outside the maze. Then, Crouch made sure he was the one to carry the cup into the maze, and he altered it. Crouch changed the destination to the Little Hangleton graveyard, but he didn't create the Portkey in the first place, as he couldn't have. It was Dumbledore who did. And this solves another question, why the Portkey works twice. As much as I like Seamus Gorman and Ben Carlin's theories, the Portkey didn't go back to Hogwarts because Voldemort intended it to, or Barty Crouch wanted to kill Harry himself. It went back because the area outside the maze was the last place it was programmed to go. I mean, if Voldemort knew that the Portkey was an easy way to escape for Harry, you'd think he would at least guide him away from it, or take it himself. But no, Voldemort just leaves it laying there on the grass for the taking. And going back to the original question, Voldemort and Crouch need to use the Triwizard Tournament because it was the only way to get Dumbledore to create a Portkey inside of Hogwarts. Crouch actually didn't have many other options. He can't apparate, and he can't physically take Harry outside the grounds, so I guess the tournament really was one of the only ways. And that concludes this sort of long-ish theory about the truth behind the Triwizard Tournament. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, thoughts, or things you'd like to point out, feel free to let me know in the comments. Also, what should I make a theory on next? I've thought of doing 9, Inside Out, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, Beauty and the Beast, and more, so pick which one you'd like by clicking the card. Subscribe for any future video I do, and see you later.